I had that clear two thoughts go through my head as I feel it, as I start to go off the side of the ladder. The first one was, this is going to hurt. And the second one was, and it's all your fault because you're responsible for this. So in the process of me going over the side of the ladder, legs first, the captain on the ladder felt me start to go, and he grabbed me around the waist, basically trying to hold on to me. And so, of course, then he goes with me.
Stay tuned. Coming up, it's part one of my two-part interview with Deputy Chief John Vanatta, discussing a training exercise that went wrong and resulted with 2 firefighter injuries after falling 10 feet onto concrete. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire. At Midwest Fire, they know better efficiency results in less waste, and it adds value to every truck they deliver. That's why they have worked hard to implement lean manufacturing processes throughout their factory. Lean manufacturing means a lower cost to build, with the savings passed on to you. To learn more, visit MidwestFire.com. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 349. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gassaway Virtual Training. There are 33 online training programs for you to choose from. Some of the programs are live events presented virtually, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit samatters.com and click on the Virtual Training tab. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment and part one of my two-part interview with Deputy Chief John Vanatta, discussing a training exercise that went wrong and resulted in 2 firefighter injuries after falling 10 feet onto concrete. Today's guest, Deputy Chief John Vanatta, joined the Siloam Springs Fire Department in January 2017. Deputy Chief Vanatta is the Fire Department Training Officer and Adjunct Instructor for the Arkansas Fire Training Academy and is currently the President of the Northwest Arkansas Metro Chiefs Training Officers Association. He is also the Captain and Training Officer of the Lincoln, Arkansas Volunteer Fire Department. His credentials include a master's degree from Eastern Michigan University, the CPSE Chief Fire Officer credential, and he is a nationally registered paramedic. Prior to moving to Siloam Springs, Chief Vanatta retired from Clinton Township Fire Rescue EMS in Michigan at the rank of Battalion Chief. He also served in the United States Marine Corps Reserve as an aircraft rescue and firefighting chief, attaining the rank of Master Gunnery Sergeant. In 2008 and 2009, he was deployed to Iraq and served as a military civil affairs liaison to the Iraqi Fire Service. Chief, welcome. Glad to have you on the Situational Awareness Matters show. You came to us by way of the near-miss reporting system, where you had gone on to the near-miss reporting system and reported your near-miss event. Then John Russ reached out to you and now to me and said, hey, this might be a good episode to have on this show to share the lessons with others. So first, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Doc. I appreciate the welcome and the invitation. And while it's not something I really enjoy talking about, if it prevents somebody else from going through what we went through, it's worth it.
Well, the lessons, I can't wait to hear the lessons. I know I got the summary, so I understand the event, but I can't wait to hear what you say you learned from this. But before we get into that, let's start with your personal background of how you got started in the fire service and what brings you up to where you are today, and then talk about the organization that you work for, and then we'll get into the event.
Well, I'm Deputy Chief for mostly training at the Siloam Springs, Arkansas Fire Department. We're a 50-member full-time department in Northwest Arkansas. So we're just about 45 minutes from Walmart land up there in Bentonville. We're right on the Oklahoma border. So we do a lot of mutual aid across the border into Oklahoma, and actually have contract with a casino that's right on the other side in West Siloam Springs. So we do a lot of contract work. We also have full ALS service, provide ALS to Oklahoma as well as our town and unincorporated county areas around it. We have contracts with various organizations for that. Do about 3,000 calls a year. Like I said, full EMS. We have a local hospital, so a lot of our transports are nearby, but anything serious has to go out to what we call the I-49 corridor, which is about 40 minutes east of us, which is Fayetteville, Rogers, Springdale, kind of the built up section, Northwest Arkansas. We're still kind of a farm town, very rural oriented, but we provide a lot of service to our community. We've got a special operations team that does a lot of swiftwater rescue. We teach swiftwater all around the Northwest Arkansas area. They come to us for that class. Partly that's because we have this kayak park in town that's really a great place to teach it. And we've got some really good instructors. So had the good fortune of being involved with a lot of that sort of thing. Before I came here, I've been here I'll be coming up on 4 years. I was up in Michigan in Detroit area, suburb of Detroit, Clinton Township, where I retired as a battalion chief from there.
How'd you get your start in the fire service?
Well, my dad was a cop in Detroit. So my idea of public safety at that time was very skewed, let's say. Growing up with, in the area of the city where they had residency at the time. So we were surrounded by other cops and firefighters. And all those guys would come home with bandages and, be off for weeks at a time with burns and things like that. So the day I told my mom that I wanted to be a firefighter was not her favorite day. But what happened was I actually joined the Marines. I joined the Marine Corps Reserve with the intention of doing some time there and going to college to become an officer in the Marines. And it just so happened there were several firefighters in my reserve unit, and kind of caught the bug from them. And EMT class, dropped out of college to go to a different college to go do EMT, and started testing around, and just was very fortunate to fall in pretty quickly.
Did you start at Clinton Township?
Yes. Yep. So started right off with the full-time job, did my 25 years there, and was looking for something new, especially somewhere warmer than Michigan. Family was very much about, let's go somewhere different. So was looking for an opportunity. I was very fortunate to land down here. So things worked out well.
Okay. Your department that you're at now, do you have career people?
Oh yeah, it's full career. We've got 50, well, about to be 51. We picked up a floater position for the next budget year. So we've got 15 on a shift. Minimum staffing's 12. We run 3 stations, 1 dedicated ambulance, 1 dedicated quint, dedicated engine, and then a cross-staffed engine and ambulance at the other station, plus the BC. So some days we're lucky and we can uncross staff those due to staffing, but with the way things have been lately with the COVID and people getting tested and quarantined and things, we're usually running minimum staffing.
And what's the population of your town? I know you do a lot of mutual aid and such outside your borders, but what's your town population?
City population is just under 20,000 and probably another 15,000 in the areas that we cover outside the city, county areas. So the city is only about 10 square miles, but our rural response district is 45, and for EMS, we're a little bit farther outside of that.
Okay. And you said in your position of deputy chief that you're responsible mostly for training? Yes.
So we don't have a separate, it's a small department. There's only 5 of us up in the admin. So you've got the chief, the deputy chief administration and operations, and then myself as we're both deputy chiefs, just that's our title, but I'm the one that's focused on training, and that's why I was brought here. When the position was created, or let me rephrase that, new chief came in a year before I did. He saw that they didn't have a training officer. The other deputy position was more of a fire marshal. What he did when that gentleman decided to retire was change that to a deputy chief position that was focused on training and establish a separate fire marshal position. So I was hired with the intention of coming in here as a training officer.
Okay. And then, so that kind of brings us up to the near miss event, because it was a training related incident in which you were a participant in as the deputy chief of training. Not a lot of deputy chiefs would actually participate in training actively, but more be administrator of the training or the coordinator of the training, or but you were clearly involved in this. So give us the lead up as to what was the inspiration for creating this drill? Had there been something in the past, or was it something you brought from an idea you brought from your previous department, or how it is that this was developed? And then kind of take us through how the training was set up, how folks were able, or to be trained. Was it classroom and field, or all field work? And then we'll come up eventually around to exactly what happened.
Okay, so I'll back up a little bit, since, like I mentioned, I came here with the intention, they hired me to be the training officer, basically. And when I started here, there had been a lot of change in a very short amount of time. New chief came in 6 months before I did, and the chief before him was here for about 5 years and had started a lot of that change. So we have a very, very young department. And I mentioned we have 50, about to be 51 full-time. We just finished training 3 new hires that we brought in, and that brings us up to 25 that were not here when I started out of 51 people. So we've had a lot of change, a lot of new people coming in, and a lot of the people who even predate that, who have been here longer than I have, haven't been here that long. We only have a couple of people that have been here over 20 years. Most of our captains have between 7 and 15 years. And we've even got a battalion chief at about the 12-year mark. So we have a lot of very young people. We train people right from the beginning. So we will hire without any qualifications, and we will send them to an EMT academy, a fire academy, do an internal academy at the beginning of that, kind of vet things, make sure that they're motivated and they meet our core values. Then we send them off to EMT, fire academy, and then eventually, after a couple of years, paramedic school. So we're a full in-house training attitude, so to speak. And as far as like the shift training, they get basically a monthly training schedule that goes out that says these are the things we're going to do on our designated training days, which are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because we're on the 4896 schedule. That way we hit all 3 shifts in a week. So they'll have some kind of classroom or group training 3 days a week. And then Tuesdays, Thursdays, and weekends are kind of their catch-up time, where they do company level training, or some of the things that I'll send them videos, or online training, something like that they can kind of accomplish without me standing there over them or leading the training. Because with as few people as we have, we have a burn building, we have facilities, and by the time you account for 1403 and all the different requirements for safety, there's no choice but for the chief, myself, the division chief of EMS, even the other deputy chief, to get involved and act as safety officers or act as instructors or whatever needs to be. So we're all pretty hands-on as far as getting out there and working with the guys. Last week we did live burns for the newest recruits, just familiarization burns, and the lead instructor was the chief of the department, was in there with them, setting the fire, and I was outside as the safety officer. So very, very involved with day-to-day training, all of us, and but it's my responsibility, and kind of I lead the way on that. So with all those new folks coming in over the last couple of years, we've had a real focus on the basics. We've been stretching pre-connects and hidden hydrants and all that kind of stuff for about 2.5 years. And finally, this year, we got to a point where we just finished bringing on 3 new people, but it had been almost a year since we brought on anybody new. So everybody'd been here long enough that we could start getting into some more advanced skills. So the intention was to start paying more attention to firefighter survival and firefighter safety, and wanted to challenge everybody. We're very much, when we do our training, about trying to make things as realistic as possible and to challenge them as much as possible. So we use a lot of live fire in our burn building. We use a lot of smoke machines and obscured vision, along with a speaker with a lot of noise, sounds like smoke detectors in the burn building, so that they've got all the noise going off, speakers playing sound of saws and, Halligan's hitting the door and things like that. So every evolution has got that kind of mayhem going on in the background, so they kind of get used to it. And our intention was to amp up the level a little bit, challenge everybody a little bit, and try something a little bit more difficult. And so that month we decided we were going to do a firefighter survival drill. And the more we talked about it, we wanted to try the Denver drill. Chief and I actually built the box that we put inside the second floor, the 4 foot tall, 4 foot wide plywood box, so that they would have the restriction on their movement, to drag somebody out of there and get them out the window. And we kind of put together that whole drill. But before we did that drill, all we did was basically tell the BCs we were going to have a firefighter survival drill and to get out there and practice their drags and carries and things like that. So they'd been out there practicing carrying people up and down stairs and doing various drags and everything, but they didn't know the Denver drill was going to be the actual drill. They just knew it was going to be something relatively high speed and that they were going to have to practice several things to be ready for it.
So we don't assume that every viewer or listener is familiar with the Denver drill. Why don't you talk us through what that is, how it came about, and what the design is of the drill? Because you said you built a box, and there's a reason you did that. Help those who are maybe not familiar with it to just get a little bit of the backstory and how you prepare to do a Denver drill.
Sure. So the Denver drill is basically based on a real incident in Denver, Colorado. Denver firefighter died inside of a building, found himself lost and trapped in a closet, basically, that had heavy file cabinets on both sides of the walls around a window. So when they went to remove him from the building, the guys who were trying to push him up didn't have the ability to stand on either side of him and push him through the window. They had to get behind him or underneath him. And he was a relatively large guy, and all of us are once you throw the gear on and then get you soaking wet. And they just struggled to get him out of a second floor window, couldn't make it happen. And, since then we've come up with all these techniques on how to, maneuver that and use ladders and ropes and things like that. But these guys are in the, you watch the video and they're in the middle of that moment and super stressed out, super exhausted. You watch the guys coming out that window and just falling off the ladder, trying to get to the ground because they're so tired from, they've given everything they got trying to get their brother out of the building. So, it's just one of those, very high risk, low frequency type things that you hope you never have to do. But if you practice it once in a while, you hope that it'll give the guys enough muscle memory to, make something happen if they were to fall in that situation. So the box is 48 inches wide by about 42 inches tall, brings us up to the window that's about 42 inches wide. So basically you have to have some way of lifting the firefighter off the floor and up over the windowsill and onto the ladder out the building. And there's various ways to do it. You can run a rope system. You can, stick a guy in the corner where he pushes up from underneath while another guy pushes from the top. I was hoping that prior to that the guys had practiced some of those techniques and in our academy, not our academy, but the regional academy that we send all of our firefighters through to get their Fire 1 and 2. They do practice that as well. So the expectation was everybody's seen this, everybody's done it and done it before, and we'll just test that and see where we're at. I made a conscious decision not to use a belay system. We have a belay anchor right in the window that we were using. What I did decide to do for safety purposes was to use 2 members on 2 ladders. So instead of having just 1 ladder to the window and 1 firefighter on the ladder, the idea was to throw 2 ladders side by side and have 2 firefighters on the other side of that window, so that as the dummy, which turned out to be me, got passed out the window, that there would be four hands to get a hold. So you're thinking, well, there's going to be all those hands on the inside. The BC for each shift acted as the safety officer inside the building. So there was another, you've got the 2 guys handing you out, then you've got 2 receiving, and you've got the double wide ladders to land on. So I felt that under the circumstances of, everybody having had some time to practice and having 2 guys on the ladder, that we'd be safe enough to do it. And we were doing it on the second floor.
Let me ask you a question. When you made the decision to run this as a 2 ladder drill versus a 1 ladder drill, were you of the mindset that if your crews ever had to do this in real event, that they would do it as a 2 ladder, or was it the 2 ladders just a safety precaution for the training?
It was both. It was both a safety precaution, and it was also a kind of a demonstration, because we had not practiced. And here's the other thing: we had not practiced carrying people down ladders. I've done it a million times, and I think we sometimes, as we get farther in our careers, after we've done stuff, we kind of forget that everybody hasn't done what you've done or done it as many times. And I went to a fire conference last year, and one of the things that we did was remove people out on ladders, and I got carried down a single ladder by a firefighter I didn't know, who was just there for the conference, by 15 different guys being carried down that ladder, and didn't think anything of it at the time, with no belay system or anything. So I thought by throwing 2 ladders, not only was I demonstrating a technique to make things easier because the guys weren't familiar with that, but also that it would maintain the safety for us.
Okay.
Have a dual shot deal.
So if they were going to do it, say, tomorrow at a real event, do you think that they would set 2 ladders to do it, or would they set 1 ladder to do it, or you would leave it to their discretion? How would it go in the real world now?
I would leave it to their discretion, but I would bet, and this is a discussion we've had since we did it, is that just because of our limited staffing, that it would probably get done over 1 ladder, and that we needed to practice that more often. But it was one of those things that, I never actually practiced it that way with 2 ladders, but it was something I thought was a good idea, especially for our first time, to try it that way and kind of expose them to that idea of that it would be easier with 2 ladders. And there were pictures, we've got Target Solutions throw pictures up, and videos of them being done, and I'd thrown that up there before. So I thought the idea was just get the idea out there of using 2 ladders, but in this case, it was also a safety factor.
Okay. All right, go ahead, on with the story.
Okay. So we did the drills. Like I say, we do drills Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We were on our 3rd day. We had done it Monday and Wednesday. I had acted as the victim through every drill. Little bumps and bruises here and there, wearing an air pack and trying to be as limp as possible while getting handed out the window a bunch of times and drugged down a ladder. It's just the beating you take. And I was willing to do that because I want those guys to be comfortable. And to be honest, I'm that guy in the office, right? So I want to be out there. I want them to see me be willing to, be out there with them and to do the things that I'm sure they don't want to do, to demonstrate to them that I'm committed to them being good at their jobs. It's very important to me that they understand that. So I was willing to take that. We made jokes all week long about, yeah, if we drop you, that's like 5 promotions and, all that kind of stuff, typical fireman stuff. The crew that was on duty on the day we had the incident was on duty the day before, 4896 shift. And we had a fundraiser where we did a bunch of cooking for the weekend. And that night I brought a bunch of the food up to put in the fridge in the bay of the fire station, and all the guys were standing around. We were talking about doing it the next day, and they were making all those jokes about, well, we'll try not to drop you right on your head and kill you, but we'll get 5 promotions if something happens. It was just all kidding around. It was not just like firefighters do. I probably started it. So, we went through all that. We had no problem the first 2 days of the drills. I'd identified that I had identified that people that I expected to be really good at it or to have the skills already didn't. And some people that I had no expectation to have those skills did. So it was very interesting to kind of get some of my preconceptions blown out on Monday and Wednesday as to, who was good at certain things and who wasn't. But at no point did I feel like I was unsafe. No point did anybody feel like we were doing anything out of the ordinary. Felt very normal, So we get to Friday and get to the Friday shift. And the Friday shift is a very confident shift. They have good leadership, good officers, and they also have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I say that in a good way. That's the kind of firefighters you want coming to your house. But we got, just as we were getting started, and we pulled two 24-foot ladders out to do the drill. And at some point, somebody said, "We got this. We can do this with one. We want to do it with one." And I said, "You guys are pretty confident you can pull this off with just one of you on the ladder?" And they said, "Yeah, we got this." And I said, "Okay." And
Have they practiced that?
they said they had practiced it beforehand, but I had witnessed it. So that's on me. I look back at that moment as the moment that I really dropped the ball. And we talked situational awareness matters. Well, the situation changed and I had no awareness that it changed. So that was the moment that I should have stopped and said, "We've just changed the parameters of this drill. We've changed the safety factor, and I need to re-examine how we're going to do this." And I didn't. I just took it as, I've done this 1,000 times before. The first 2 days went fine. Everything's good. These guys are confident. They've got this. No worries. So we got set up. I had 2 companies. So the way we try to do it is we have 3 stations. One's kind of a double house with the ambulance, the one dedicated ambulance we run. So we had stations 2 and 3 here. So 6 people, and they brought 1 engine and an ambulance because the one's cross staffs the ambulance. So that's why I remember the ladder being such a big deal, because we only had 1 engine with 124. So we had to go get one out of our storage container, a spare, and it sat on the ground and we didn't use it. But they brought their 6 guys, and like every fire department out there, right? You when you're this size, you can't take people out of service to do training. You're just always in service and you're always expecting that next call. So there's always, this I'm sure played some part in it of always being in a rush to try to get everything done. So instead of doing big walkthroughs or anything like that, we just jumped right into it. First crew got up there and did it perfect. Did it absolute perfect. No issues going out on a ladder, no issues getting me out the window. Everything went fine. We had video running of the whole thing, and perfect, not a big deal. And then we got to the next one, and the next one start out kind of the same way. I would vary my position in the box. So the box is 8 foot long, 4 foot wide, 42-inch high sides. And sometimes I laid down like at the far end of the box with my head towards the window or my feet towards the window. Sometimes I'd lay right under the window just to vary up, the challenge for them. And I don't even remember which way I was oriented on that particular one. But the 2 firefighters who came in that window both had just over about 1.5 years on a job. And their captain is a guy with 7 or 8 years on a job, and he stayed on the ladder. So, and this was because the captain was going to come in, but the other guys were like, "I got this, we got this, we can do this." And they were very confident in themselves. So they came into the room and they started, packaging up the gear. You take the waist strap and run it around the leg and back up and clip it so that you can use the SCBA harness as a harness to pull on, so they can pull on the shoulders. And they got that all done, and they kept trying to lift me up. And at one point, the battalion chief, who was standing right outside the box watching, called a stop. He said, "Stop, stop, stop." And what had happened is the clamp that held my cylinder on the back had come loose, so it was rattling around in there, and they weren't getting a good hold on me. So I was halfway up in the air. They stopped, kind of stuck me on the side of the box, and we clamped that back down. And at that point, kind of looking around, it's like, are you guys all right? And they're like, yeah, we're good. And then at some point in there, one of them got kind of stuck underneath me and was having a hard time. And we had to kind of stop for a second, let him reposition. And then it was up to the edge of the window. And one of the other issues we'd had was the burn building is a steel building, kind of like the scalloped steel sides on it. And when you're at the windowsill, those scallops on the underside kind of leave an open spot. It's wavy there. So the top of the cylinder would get caught underneath the metal of the windowsill and they'd have to pull you back farther out. So they were kind of struggling with that. I got caught a couple times and finally they got me up on the top and on the sill, and they were kind of fighting it. And what happened was the captain came in off the ladder and he was still standing on the ladder, but reaching in the window, grabbing onto my shoulder straps, trying to pull me out, which kept him from getting set the way he needed to get on the ladder. So he's pulling and pulling, trying to get me out the window. And rather than pulling me out to where I'd have been face down against the ladder with my arms and legs kind of naturally falling down the sides, creating some balance, I came out like a turtle. And so I was on my back with my feet and my arms up in the air. And I remember at that point, as I went out onto the ladder thinking, this probably isn't good, a good place to be. But I was expecting that the guys on the inside would kind of like push and like roll me over. And if you see the video, what you see is that the captain's on the ladder and he's trying to figure out how to keep a hold of me at the same time that he's trying to get his hands on the back of the beams of the ladder so that he can get position but he can't because I'm teetering. And this happens within seconds. And before you know it, I start to fall off to the right of the ladder. I had that clear, two thoughts go through my head as I feel it, as I start to go off the side of the ladder. The first one was, this is going to hurt. And the second one was, and it's all your fault because you're responsible for this. So in the process of me going over the side of the ladder, legs first, the captain on the ladder felt me start to go and he grabbed me around the waist, basically trying to hold on to me. And so of course, then he goes with me. So we both fall about 12 feet. Very lucky the door was open to the building, steel door was open to the building, and we just missed that. There was guys on either side of the ladder watching, but they couldn't do anything. In fact, one moved out of the way because he's afraid of having, 500 pounds fall on his head. So we came down. I kind of landed a little bit on the captain. So my legs kind of landed on his hips. And I landed right on my right side, right on the frame of the pack, right underneath my ribs. So knocked the wind right out of me. You can hear on the video, you can hear the big oomph when I hit the ground. Of course, first, knocks the wind out of me. It's just the frame of the pack that caught me underneath the ribs, but it caused me under the ribs. So I didn't crack any ribs, and I broke 4 ribs on that side a few years ago. So I knew the feeling wasn't the same. I just knew it hurt. But of course, the first thing I'm looking around is, where's Dustin and is he okay? So, and of course, the guys who are on the ground instantly ripping gear off, trying to get to us. Are you okay? Are you all right? What can we do? And all that kind of stuff. So get treated right away. Before I know it, I look up and the chief's standing there, because our burn building is right next to our headquarters station. And he's standing there. Everybody's, checking. And of course, as much as it hurts, you're still trying to go, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm not going to die. I know that, I'm okay. And I'm looking over at him. And I'm like, is Dustin all right? Yeah, he seems like he's okay. And he's like, I'm all right, Chief. So now I'm just sitting there leaned over trying to catch my breath. And we start talking back and forth. They bring the ambulance crew, which was not involved in the drill, but is right at the station. They were up next. They come over, medic, does a refusal on me and says, we'll take you to the hospital. I'm like, I need to go, but I'll just ride with the chief. I don't want to take an ambulance out of service for this. I'm just going to go and they're going to do some x-rays and make sure nothing's broke. And so take me over there. the whole way over there, I'm telling the chief, hey, if you feel the need to write me up for this, because this is my fault, then I'll sign it as soon as I get back. And he's like, let's just get you taken care of. We'll worry about that later.
Thank you, Chief Vanatta, for sharing your experience with us today. Remember, this is part 1 of a 2-part interview, so be sure to come back next week for the rest of Chief Vanatta's story. Since 2007, SA Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-stress, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and survival and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home to the ones who love them. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some amazing opportunities to present my program on a virtual platform to groups ranging in size from 6 to 400. And just when I thought we were making the turn on the pandemic and getting back to delivering live programs, we've had a setback. All the live events that I had scheduled for the rest of 2020 have all postponed due to increased COVID cases nationally. On November 24th, I jointly presented a situational awareness and thermal imaging virtual program with Andy Starnes from Insight Training. It was a great evening of learning and sharing, and the feedback was amazing. Here's a piece of one of the emails that I received from a lieutenant from the Chicago Fire Department. I participated in the webinar with Andy Starnes and you last night. It was spectacular, incredible. I'm simply blown away. Thank you for the outstanding presentation. Looking forward to watching it again when the recording is released. My mind was blown away. It never gets old getting feedback like that from a program attendee. I want to thank the organizations who've allowed me to offer your members virtual training, and a special thanks to the 44 agencies who had programs postponed in 2020 because of the pandemic and are patiently waiting to be rescheduled. If you're interested in hosting a virtual program or a live event in 2021, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I'll give you a call. Finally, remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situation awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 349 of the Situation Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you to my guest, Deputy Chief John Vanatta. Thank you to our amazing platinum sponsor for almost 7 years now, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, Gasaway Virtual Training. And thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.